black strip boxes. They're called Kino Flow. They're those fluorescent light strips. And because there's one of Annie Leibovitz's old assistants, the German guy, Schroeder, it'll come to me. He does a lot of close spaces and use those, but many lights. And I find his doesn't get much personality. It'll come to me, his name in a minute. But I wanted that anyway, and it was more for the quality of light than the reflections in his eye. Anyway, so they said, that's an old shoot. They said, we want to do some new ideas of him. And here, I'd like to photograph Malcolm Turnbull in the early morning because they wanted to show that he was a regular guy with his kayak, blah, blah, blah. So this is what I pitched to an editor so that they can try and understand, because otherwise they'll just give me 5 minutes or whatever. And I also had to send this to him. Trying to locate an old timber boat shed. I was going to shoot it on a 5.4 or 10.8 camera just for fun, for myself. I'd also shoot some on the digital because I'm thinking now when I'm old and at the more than halfway through my career, that if I'm going to photograph someone who is relatively iconic, I might, or, who's famous, I'll try and make a fantastic image that would one day maybe be in the portrait gallery or someone will go, wow, and that it's different to some of the other things that people always see of them. I can also shoot in the studios, have access to dark, broody. I have a theatre company gave me this 6 metre 4.2 massive cloud. And I would just set up, because I would set that in the garage of the studio and I'd just literally get one of those drippy hose things, or just use a metal bar and you just drill holes and you pressure it and you make rain, or else I'd just use a friggin' sprinkler. But I'd probably put it behind. I've done him with water once before. So then I show them. I'm pretty thorough. I'm sorry it's gone on to that, but this is where he's, poor peasant, you can see he's got a shitty little house somewhere here. It's one of these hovels. But I just show the editor and to show the PR people that he's got to just walk from his fat bum from here to here. It's not far. So all these information is, I didn't go forward, did I? Because I'm on play again. It's all, so, sorry, that's his house, 46 Wanalla Road. Yeah, it's a shitty little place with a crappy swimming pool. No, so it all came down to, I ended up, so I'll just finish quickly. So I'm showing them, this was a football player, Quade Cooper, I shot. I just wanted to give them some idea of some other images of Malcolm I do. I've got this fantastic old ferry rope, and he went to Sydney Grammar School and they had to climb this old rope in the gym, and the friggin' teacher would have a massive cane and give you a good flogging on the bum if you weren't any good. That's the giant backdrop. It's a cracker. Oh, that's a rowing machine I got off a friend because I thought, I could possibly use that. So I show them all this stuff, and then downstairs in my garage, Exactly. I'm not his greatest fan, okay? And also, I get great delight in torturing these people who no one ever tortures. It's just my childish brain, I swear. It's like, as I've said before, when Peter Dutton walked in to my studio by himself, and whether you like him or not, I can't help it. I'm a bit unfiltered sometimes. I'm trying hard. I've literally walked right up. He's come up the stairs, and he's tall because I'm little. And I've gone right straight like that. I've gone, wow, have you got Asian ancestry? And I'm not doing it for any other reason, but it just comes out of somewhere. Well, I think it's a poke just to see if I get a reaction too, because otherwise you're just going to get boring expression. So after he's, oh, no. And then the next question was, I always Google my subjects and everything, you know, I'll put in there John Howard photographic portrait or Malcolm Turnbull portrait or Jesse, what's your last name? Hartman? Hartwig. Jesse Hartwig, surfer extraordinaire portrait or whatever, you know. And it gives me an idea of what's been done. It gives me an idea of how far that they'll go. And it just... I'll read a bit about, so I've got it. I like to have some common ground to talk to them. Anyway, so yeah, I've said, oh my God, you've got the Asian ancestry, have you? And he said, no. And then I've said, yeah, I always Google, and I said, I just don't understand. When I Googled you, all I could see, it came up with a potato. What is that all about? It wasn't a conversation starter, but again, he was fine. He was fine because they've got such thick hides, these people. It's incredible. So anyway, that was potentially Malcolm's torture chamber. But I would have had him with a or maybe or something. Anyway.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry, chairs, extra chair. And then I wanted to show them as a reference. When I was 24, I did these great photos for Rolling Stone, and I was so lucky. So this is where I saw Malcolm. I just wanted him more soulful on a great old backdrop, probably without those. Those are so bad, aren't they? But because I keep everything, these are original Polaroids from that series I shot, and I stick them all in little notebooks with archival gaffer tape, as you can see. And yeah, these were from that time. And these are all, when they are lit, let me go back, that's daylight, I remember. It's just clipped up against the side of the rowing shed, this backdrop. That's this is one light coming from here, which I only had one light and an umbrella at the time. That was a daylight again. A lot of these were, she was the grandmother here, Patty Dench. And I wrote down, you know, I used a white brolly between F8 and F11 because it's all on film. I shot 3 rolls and I processed them all. So I used to keep a track of everything because I just love doing that. And then I suggested otherwise another option. So near where I am at Glebe, at Annandale, is the fish markets is down over here. And there's a great Sydney Rowing Club and I thought, I could do something here. But I wanted something less colourful and more gritty and black and whitey. And then I also, because I have to give them a fair option, and I shot this guy for like an accounting magazine just down at the beach early one morning down at Curl. Again, we were testing the Hasselblad, and no, John didn't come with me that time. It was another person. But these are pretty well straight out of the camera. You can see I've got a reflection. I think I used a 3-foot or octa, and it was just a friend standing there with a light stand, and it's, you know, wirelessly triggered, so it's not sitting in the sand to fall over. And then what I'll do is just without the flash on, I'll just take a photo so I see what the background looks like, and then I'll just put the flash in and dial it up or dial it down accordingly to get the balance that I wanted. I think you can see that's the raw one. On the one they used, I took out it's slightly different, but I would have cleaned up his light a little bit. And so I'm the fiddling kid. We've got the cane at school probably for that now. So go to the headmaster. So then I've got to tell them I'll be wearing a mask. My assistant John will be wearing a mask. We'll do all this crap. So I send that into them to give them an idea of what I'm going to do. So in the end, what happened was I have decided to have a break from the Good Weekend magazine. I've worked for them since 1982, and the new editor I don't get on well with. And I actually sent them a pitch. It's nearly 12 weeks ago, and sadly it was in yesterday. The exact pitch, an idea was in yesterday's Good Weekend, and they got one of the other photographers to do it. So it just reminded me that, they're not as loyal as they used to be. I'm going to get down and just find something else quickly. Anyone, anytime, just not butt in, that's rude. Just stop me and say whatever you... okay, another thing. I got asked the other day, Christine Arnoux, who's a lovely lady, it's 25 years since her... Oh, come on, man. I was going to start doing all the doggy things, I'm impressed with that. Finger puppet work. I never could do the butterfly, though. So they said 25 years ago I photographed her, and that she was fantastic to photograph. And since all her... It's gone a bit cheesy and stuff, and when I look and Google Christine now, I'll just show you, there's lots of... and this is exactly what I do. I'll go... and then I'll look, and she's not like this. She's lost quite a lot of weight now, Christine, but a lot of the pictures are like this. And that's her daughter. They're just too big, bright and cheesy. And so I think now she's about to turn 50. I'll just see. I think there's some I did of her 25 years ago. Yeah, so these are really old, because when she first started, it's when Nina Cherry was around, and she was Australia's Nina Cherry in a way. And so I shot these. This would have been a 1K tungsten sitting on the floor. That was my old daylight studio. It was beautiful. But she was such a sweet girl. It's a scary criminal man there. Look at that. Scary. Jesus. But so what they said, would I be interested? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. And because I'm a goose, the first thing I always go is, oh, I'd be honoured to do that. And tell them not to bring a checkbook, definitely. No. And I just get overexcited and overgenerous sometimes. So anyway, it's true. And then I get into trouble from people at home. But it sounds like I've been thinking about Christine for 25 years. I haven't. And she is classical, timeless and unique. And she doesn't need any props. And she's a 50-year-old woman nearly, or 49-year-old woman. She does ABC at the night time on Friday nights, radio 702. So my references, I looked at, this is Diana Ross by a fantastic, I'm trying to think what nationality, his name is Skrebneski. He must be Russian background. He photographed a lot of people. I don't want to get Christine's gear off, but I don't mind getting her clothes off. And obviously I might have to, I don't know whether you do a little, oh, okay, go back one. Whether you do, and you're allowed to do that, a little bit of liquefy and push things in, of course. But I would look for some really strong, rather than take lots and lots of cheesy photos, just if I can make 6 or 8 really strong, iconic photos. And then I just thought about black, white, reverse, whether I'm just sort of taking, yeah, that's his name, Skrebneski. And this guy, it's really his only prop he ever used. He shot everything really simply like that, which is probably just one big light above, some blackboards on the side to give the shadow, no fill, so she's dark underneath. But it's so timeless and classic, and I just what you don't see is more important, you know. And then I want to shoot her, for instance, she lives in Wollongong, and there's the ferry that goes across to Bundeena. And so if it was a rainy, stormy day, and so even though these people are younger, these are sort of I'm trying to give them a visual reference of where I want to go. And that's, you know, a respectful, powerful black woman. So, yeah, so simple styling, beautiful lighting, blah, blah. And so this is to help me as well as to help them. And I sent it to the lady, and the best part is she sent me back a note saying that's exactly where I want to be. So that's delightful. Okay, where should we go here?
Tim, do you ever go on a shoot with somebody where you really aren't 100% sure what you're going to do?
Oh,
you're going to do it?
Yeah, now, in the next hour. Always. And that's another, because I'm lucky to have had a magazine background, and I'm lucky to have not been on staff since 1980 on a magazine. I get to be my own art director, which is fantastic. I understand what the magazines need, that they need strong leads, they need compositionally horizontals and verticals, they need details. You need to, if you're a photographer that shoots really tight, you need to keep saying to yourself, step back, show the environment, step back. Don't always work everything to camera, depending on the story. If it's a celebrity, they're obviously going to have a persona that they want to put out there. Corona. Sorry. It's okay. I promise it's not. Or I hope not. And I'm joking. So it's more the point. I used to try, in the early days, you would go with exactly in your mind what you wanted to get, and you would come away incredibly disappointed because now I will go to a shoot with an idea of half a dozen, with a look or a feel that I want to try and get, and try and I've got so many photos in my head that it just I don't know. I need an example. I'm trying to think of. For instance, someone like John Howard. We talked before about eyebrows. With model John, fireman John, Corona. So we're everywhere. You're all gone. Yeah. Do you feel nervous to touch? You do, don't you? Huh? Do you want to move over there in isolation? For instance, someone like John Howard, you can think to yourself, oh, he's an elder statesman. I want to get you might look at some photo. Look, for instance, elder statesman, I think of Winston Churchill. There's the most awesome, there was a fantastic photographer in the 50s, 60s called Karsh, Karsh. And one of the most famous portraits is Karsh's portrait of Winston Churchill. And just be one sec. It's worthwhile, I promise. Okay, so we know this picture, right? You know, does anyone know what the story is behind this picture? Okay, Winston Churchill sitting in the chair with his cigar in his mouth. Karsh has walked up to him. He's got his 5.4 loaded, taken the scar straight out of his mouth, didn't say a word, just gone straight back to his camera, and Winston's just scowled at him like, you MF, and he's just gone bang. And see, people just, that's the important thing that, you know, people might go, oh God, he's amazing. But he's looking at Karsh going, you can't take my cigar like that. I'm Winston Churchill. But so I would have loved to have got a strong picture of Howard like that. And sadly, I remember John Howard, you know, to get him to sit on the edge of the desk, and he's sort of so rigid. And then you say, oh, just loosen up a bit, John. And he'd go straight into that. And I go, mate, you're a defender in a soccer team with a free kick. You can't hold on to your nuts, you know, or whatever. At which point, all these minders go, you can't say that. So I just show you why Karsh is so good, though. And his jump series was just insane.
So if you say something like that to a celebrity, do you ever get into trouble? Like, has it
I get it.
come off good for you, or
Yep.
sometimes you get...
Oh, sorry.
No, you're right.
It's Halsman. It's Halsman's. Sorry. I got so many... Yeah, it was Halsman.
Oh, wow.
So Halsman is so famous for his portrait of Salvador Dali, but I do love that other guy too, Karsh, who was, there's quite a few of them, and they all work for Life magazine. There's another guy, Alfred Eisenstadt, and these three that would quite different but compete against each other. So going to this, that amazing shot of Salvador Dali, when you read the behind the scenes of that, and I've got a book which has the frames before, after, and the ones which they didn't publish. It's an all-in-camera shot. One assistant's holding this chair on the left here. Someone's throwing the cats. Dali's told to jump.
Wouldn't be allowed to throw cats.
Nah. But I'm a dog guy, so don't push me, okay? I got banned from the Cats at the Pound. They accused me of starting cat flu. I didn't. But so Halsman came up with a concept because I guess at the time we'd just gone on to the ability to freeze motion with strobes too, because at this time, most famous portrait people like the Hollywood guy, George Hurrell, was doing super beautifully lit tungsten portraits, probably 6 or 8 lights, with just all flagged and masked to exact lighting areas, whereas Philippe Halsman loosened the whole thing up, and he just did some amazing people, absolutely amazing people who he had jumping from who?
Is that Liberace up there? Is that Liberace right there?
On the right?
No, go.
I think that's Siggy, isn't it? Sigmund Freud?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
But,
I
you
did
know,
Martin Jerry Lewis.
just fantastic.
So good.
And look at where it's shot. It's just, you know, I mean, if it was on white, it'd be almost too comical cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can see there's a shitty skirting board,
Yeah.
it's just fantastic.
What's that you made?
So these were all done on film.
These would all have been shot, I think he shot mostly on a Rolly, 2 1/4 square, 6 by 6 centimetre Rolly medium format camera.
So has the advent of digital changed the way this is done now?
Yeah, I reckon. These days, exactly, you're 100% right. You shoot this in digital. If an advertising guy was told, okay, we're going to do this for Sydney Water or something campaign, they'd go, they build it in digital these days. You shoot the chair, you shoot this, you shoot that. You mightn't even use real water. You might go, oh, I've got a lovely 3D render of water here, which is so sad in a way. And that's what turns me off a lot of advertising. I'm terrible because when you work like this, in an say we've got that shoot and it's here or it's here, and I'm where that you guys are there. I don't move my camera. So to me, I'm not a photographer anymore. I'm just a human photocopy machine. And I am just being totally steered by the art director to make that picture at the end. We'll try that in a minute. The brain picking newsletter. But so to shoot that shot today, and I'm crap at it, but the good digital people will set the camera up, taking that whole scene. They'll probably, hence why in advertising, people will use massive phase 150 megapixel camera, not for the sake that they want 150 megapixels, but because it costs so much to assemble it in all the retouching stuff. They can then go, right, I've got 150 megapixels here. We want to pull a vertical out. There's 50 megapixels. We're cool. We can do that. We want to take a banner strip for the web. We can pull that out. That might be, 15, 20 megapixels. So they take the whole thing and then they can chop it up later. It's now about convenience for the client and the ad agency people, I guess, as opposed to real photography. And it's a shame because it always looks so phony these days, I find. And if anyone can answer me why every ad had to have like a fake animated animal in it, I don't know. That was driving me crazy. So Halsman's a great influence. But going back to Johnny Howard, yeah. So you might go there thinking, there's a fantastic picture of King George V. Who was the one and Wallace Simpson? Who was that one? Was that George V?
No,
Edward. Edward VII and Wallace Simpson holding hands, jumping, and so good. And I thought, Jeanette and John, I'll get that.
awesome.
And they're like, oh, no, we couldn't do that. He's the Prime Minister. So I'll often look at old things too because I have a lot more respect for these old guys than the digital newies, and I just don't really get digital newies. So going back where we were.
Tim,
Yes.
you have to create one of these presentation idea.
Only for myself to help. Do I have to do? Sorry, shut up, Tim. Listen.
Each time that you were photographing, John Howard or something, did you
No.
have to recreate one new idea?
No, advertising they ask you to do a treatment in advertising, which is, I'll just see if I've got any, which is, here we go. What a wank. Sorry. And I apologise for my language. I don't mean to offend anyone. Just a bonus. Sorry, sir.
That'd be the same as what directors do for commercials and stuff like that.
Exactly the same.
Storyboard.
Exactly the same.
My daughter-in-law does that.
And I find it a bit wrong. Oh, what was this one? Oh, this was a government job. And as it says, I'm waiting for this to happen, actually. This would be pay some pocket money if it does. New South Wales Department of Justice wanted to do a reboot of their library. So I will do one for commercial jobs, but not for magazines, although all magazines, but I can guarantee if you've got an idea that you would like to pitch to a magazine, do it, but make sure you put on at the end of it that the ideas, even though it might have no legal standing, the ideas remain my property, and I appreciate you not passing them on to your staff photographers to rip off like they did with my friend Tim. So if you just put that at the bottom, okay, that'd be good. Bastards. Especially when you see it and you go, oh, oh, they just didn't do it right.
Yeah, you could have done it.
Oh, I wouldn't have even charged or whatever, you know. That's the frustrating thing because sadly, I do friggin' love this stupid hobby thing. It's probably because it's the only thing I've ever really been any good at apart from under-7 soccer. So, yeah, this being a government is very tricky because you've got to, they want diversity, of course, age, gender, I'm just trying to see if there's any photographic stuff. Okay, so I've worked with the government before on different things for housing. There's someone reading Braille. And again, to me, they're all too sunny and bright. I'm a dark, moody bastard. But so, for instance, the hands would just be a reflector from kicking the light across from the outside, just shooting over his shoulder. That's daylight, the Aboriginal girl, daylight, the housing people. And I would have shot with, I'm not a zoomy guy.
What's the subtlety of the wheelchair in the bottom corner there?
Well, that's supposed to be a mum. I also don't like the subtlety of the tap next to it, which I've just seen, which
Yeah, true.
it's like the handle's gone the wrong way, but now all I can see is that the tap, which is good. I'll find something else in here, which, you know, I'm good at that. Okay. And see, now my eye goes straight to that folded corner up above her head. That because it's the way we're taught. Theoretically, this is what all science will tell us. Because we're not Japanese and we don't read, back to front. We don't read right to left. So they've done studies where they put a picture up and they have a camera that scans your eyes to watch your eye movement, and it's pretty fascinating. So theoretically, you come in top left because that's where you normally learn to read, start the page, and you come in and you follow a line, or you'll go to what they call points of opposition, where you'll have a highlight against a really dark. These are too subtle, but I come in and I see this and I come across here and then I go to this light patch and then my eyes just transfixed on here for some reason. I can't get over that little thing, but that's just because I was looking there. And to me, but basically we're taught, we come in, you might come down, and then you might go through this line and see what they're doing here. But they've followed this, and there's so much friggin' science in the 80s on this. I think they gave up after that, but it fascinates me though. Huh?
They use it in the construction of websites.
Do they?
Yeah. Eye-pattern recognition.
I find it fascinating. These are also, this is the difference between a government job, real, pharmaceutical job, cashier. So you can see there's a difference in the production in a way. This is in my studio, and I painted the wall, and I put a light outside these windows. I think there's a wider one, which was just a gridded, which means it's narrow, light just kicking on his face, and a gentle fill. And I can see there's a little bit of light behind because I see a tiny little shadow there. So there's something coming back up off here. Yeah, that's the same ad thing for some pharmaceutical company. That's the same corner, but I've just put in some yellow flats and I've painted the pelmets I made. These are just my windows, and I just build a little set, and it's fun. And I can charge them for that, and I have a stylist lady who you'll hire, and she'll go to a nursing home or whatever and give them $100 donation and borrow a tray and plate or whatever you need to get. When I was photographing that man on the beach with the surfboard, this was about an hour before I photographed the guy when the sun came up, and this little old guy goes down there every day. He's so cute. And actually it was this shoot. It's the same beach, Curl. This was a story about, it's not autism, but the kids have this disease, start SAN. Trying to remember. But I shot these on a medium format camera, and I had an assistant just with a light on a stick next to me, and you can see the lights coming from there across. The sun's coming up behind. That is the sun from behind reflected. And by being on the medium format, I can, because it syncs at any shutter speed, power at any shutter speed, I can control the background and the balance between the background, the lights. So the little kid, when she came, she had a pink ball, and I just chucked it in the water. And then, this is the same pharmaceutical. It's a bit mixed up. So then he gets better. He's had his treatment now. He's on the tablet, so he can go meet his friends in the park. Yeah. Just a sweet lady in a block in Woolloomooloo, again for housing. Another government job, government work. Hang on. What have I got here? Is that here? No. Oh, it is on that one. Sorry. What else am I doing? But ask any questions. Here's another pitch to explain. Woman's Weekly, I used to do a lot for. Oh, look, by Tim Cack. I don't know how that's got. Oh, it's me, but I don't know how I've ended up with that. So they wanted to do an Olympic portfolio. This is 8 years ago. Kate Fraser was the photo editor, and if I don't suggest what to do, it can be really cheesy and nasty, especially for your Women's Weeklies. Well, this will be famous, should be famous. But you can guarantee that that's had a lot of work, I can tell you, because Annie just doesn't simply line them up and bang them out. There's a lot of post-production in there. That's what this is just superb. You know? A lot of people think that she's a waste of space. I don't think she's a photographic genius, but I think a lot of people underestimate how hard it is to photograph celebrities, to make them look not like something different to what they want to be. I mean, what a great picture of Baryshnikov. That's Mikhail Baryshnikov, yeah, the dancer.
They don't not look like ballet dancers, they all do that.
I don't know, but see, I just love, you know, she's got a really simple Paisley canvas background, which is not big. It's probably 8 or 10 feet high, and it's probably only 2 or 3 meters wide at the very most. It's a simple box, which is got a bit of soul and love on it, and his lights are. And this was obviously a shot to photograph Annie or something, but yeah, I bought those rings in the end. Simple sections, a build of my gym, whole concrete wall, honest real workout, well-worn props that have soul. I want, yeah, because if you don't, the stylist will turn up with a brand new football, brand new everything, you know? So constantly remind her of that. I don't think I ever worked for is the government. which is far from it. I got asked to do, this is a while ago, a project called Don't Diss My Ability. I do quite a lot with people with mental illness and stuff. It's probably going to relate to me. So I don't know why I've shown why I put that in. These are mine, and that was shot for a nursing home series. But I want to show them. Oh, that was a lady. I don't remember if she murdered her partner. That was shot for Good Weekend. But I think I wanted to show them just real. Oh, he was a classic. And I love that. I always love a dirty background too. Classic. He came to the studio, Bob Catter, and I used to, believe it or not, ride horses, and I used to consider myself as a bit of a cowboy, and I have a proper lasso, which I've had probably 30 odd years. Anyway, so I brought it out with a beautiful little leather on the Hondo thing. Anyway, he's picked up his coffee. He's good. Sally, look, he's got a real one. He's got a real one. So I've got this box I've built, which is like a studio on wheels. I can move around to the daylight. So I've got him in. Oh, guess that he's just gone crazy and loved it. So again, this is the same woman I shot before. This is a cover shot I've tried for Good Weekend, and I want her as the Ice Queen. This is a boy who, at 18, got meningitis. He's now doing TED Talks, been teaching photography. He's a DJ. He's lost both his legs and his arms. Absolutely out of control. I love photographing the Holocaust. I photographed quite a few of the old Jewish Holocaust people. These are, I think, are a lot of JPEGs, and they're not as tortured as this. So, I don't know why I've done so many people without legs as well. Seem to be the amputee photographer. And through photographing amputees, I photographed the surgeon Mujib al-Madiris, who is a Iraqi refugee who has done, this guy's name was Tomlinson, and he had his legs blown off in the army. And my daughter actually has a bad hip, and I took her to see Munch because he said, come on, I'll have a look. She was born with one leg, because it was not in the hip joint. It was up here, so it was 27 mils shorter. And then with the hip spike, her an operation came down. And it's gone quite well. But he did some x-rays, and he is a bit freaky. He suggested like super powerful rare earth magnets to cut a leg in the middle and then push it apart to make it longer. And we were like, whoa, we'll just leave it. She's fine, you know. Oh my God. So anyway, and another thing, I often get asked to do maybe 20 a whole staff in a day. This was 2 days or 3 days for SBS TV, and before I go, I'll load up my car with a million little props and gadgets and shit that I got, because I know, well, exactly. This lady's the stylist, but rather that's my coat hanger, you know, because it was actually my great uncle is Charlie Bean, the war, the one who started Canberra, CWB, and that was his. So anyway, I fill the car with all this crap. This lady on the left, her hobby. So the idea was their hobby. She loves to shop, buy clothes. The lady on the left loves to read. So rather than a book, we've made it more like a bird. Camera lady. These two had been friends in Europe for years and reunited at SBS. this guy was the soccer guy, this guy was the script writer guy. And I've literally only got 10 minutes with them, so I've got to come up with a quick idea.
Different and cool.
Yeah.
Do you get all that information beforehand?
Nah.
No idea. So you got to do
They'll
it
just
on
literally walk in the door. Oh, g'day, Jesse. What do you do? Oh, okay. Plumber. Perfect. I've got a whatever, you know. You know, if you're bald, the punch is on your
I did
head.
that.
The punch works, doesn't it?
I did that in my
Me
attempt
too.
on my disability.
Oh, I
I couldn't get it off then.
It's same. That's see. You guys think it's bad people. Awesome.
That would be great.
The things we can
Front
stick
mouth.
to our heads. That was, for instance, that's a good week. Oh, that's just out of interest. Good weekend, not good weekend. Women's Weekly will do. This was the thing about their favourite charity. Hers was Beyond Blue. And when they're published, they'll take that line out behind their head where it's two boards pushed together.
Yeah.
They'll just soften it. But what else can I talk about? Okay. Andrew Denton on the left, classic man. He's a prick these days. So I'm going to tell you, he has become so self-absorbed and conscious. He was delightful in his earlier days. He didn't care. Now he's just, I don't know. It feels like he's lost his. It feels like he's now Alan Jones establishment kind of thing, rather than that's. But as opposed to being a fun guy, he's a serious person.
And he was fun and quirky.
He was always fun and quirky. And funny, he came over to this, I first photographed him years ago, and he came to, my mum and dad used to live in a place on the north side of Sydney, next to Chatswood called Roseville, and they had an old red brick house with a dodgy old swimming pool. Anyway, I had to photograph him for something, and I was going to come over, because I wanted to photograph him in the old 70s pool, which wasn't that old in the 70s, I guess, in the late 80s or early 90s. Anyway, so he was so good. My mum made him, sandwiches, and he was delightful. Every time I ever see him up there, he'd say, oh, send me up to your mum for sandwiches. I dressed him in my little Viennese dad's little yellow nylon swimming trunks.
Oh,
And it was just priceless. But he would, he would so obliging. I'll have to find that. Anyway, a few years later, I had to do it for Who Weekly. I used to shoot a lot for, and they had a thing they used to do called intriguers. So you were either beautiful, so you're into beautiful people, or you weren't that attractive, but you were interested, so you're an intriguer. So they never tell you what you have to do, or they were good like that. They trust me. So when he came, I built for some reason, I decided he was going to be Gulliver in Gulliver's Travels. So I had this big piece of masonite, or what masonite, chipboard, 1200, 2400, and I put some sand on there, and I'd gone down to the local kids' science shop, terrific scientific, and bought little animals and little palm trees. I was having a ball, and I thought, I'll get in here. So, and I put all along the side, I just put little tacks there, and I had lots of cotton. And so I said, Andrew, when you come, I'm going to do you this Gulliver. Put a shirt on, put some shit all over his stern and his face, and he's laying on there, and I'm just putting all the things on. And I'll see if I can find it, because I know where it is at home. But I shot that on the 4x5 camera, which I had literally, if that's him lying here, that's his head this end, I've got the camera sort of sitting up here, shooting like that. And I lit the whole thing, which I love to do, is with just my mag light, just torch. Because he's lying there and he's not going to move, I don't have to worry about movement. And I can then do all the intricate lighting and all the little gadget things. And it was a cracker, but it was a bit obscure. And then I said, oh, I've got Chucky, which I've had for ages, the ventriloquist dummy I bought somewhere. And when I bought him, he had no clothes. And I had to go to this little Italian shop in Leica where they do kids' clothes with Chucky and my friend. And this little old Italian nonna,
Yeah.
she's like going, oh, look, this is our friend Chucky. He's got no pants, no shirt. And she was so cute. Got him the clothes, got him his sailor suit. And then I made it all dirty. So look, anyway, I've still got it because I think I'm a frustrated set designer maybe. Anyway, so Andrew had this fantastic suit. So when I saw that, I said, I'm going to give you the part down the middle, moron hairdo, and you can have Chucky. And he did. And just very briefly, that's a photo of the guy who did One Tell, Jody Rich. And that was a cover for Good Weekend of Jody Rich. And that guy was such a knob. And I didn't like him. I never met him. And they said, oh, you're going to do Jody Rich for the cover. Here's the phone number. He said, I'll meet you at the America Club in Macquarie Street, Sydney. And you can do my portrait there. And I've said it probably a million times, but that's the guy who walked in. And I did a bit of nothing on him. He's walked straight in. And I put my hand out. Shaking my hand. I spoke to him and suddenly it's lost $2 million. And he's just looked at me and just slightly deflated. And that's, I can't help it. I didn't even go there meaning to say that. It's just because I think you knob, you've lost lots of people's money too.
And that's why it looks so pensive.
Yeah. Thought he was always good to shoot, and from the very first shoot when he was 16, I knew he was a sensitive soul. Yeah, beautiful. One of my old assistants, Aaron, and this little setup here is, I often, when the subject is boring as batshit, I'll pull back and show some technical stuff. It just, because it's a bit more interesting than the subject sometimes, and sometimes it can, I did it, the first time I did it really was Kevin Rudd, and he was giving me absolutely, every time I'd go, I like to do this, no, he doesn't do this. Can you look? No, he doesn't do a loose tie. So in the end, I just had him standing like a specimen, and I had all these lights so close, just spotlighting on him, and that worked really well. But in this one of Aaron, I'm just going to say, I liked, and I changed so quickly. This is a ring light, a ring flash, going into a flash pack. There's 3 lights here. This is a light doing a grid on the background, just a little bit behind. The ring light does this shadow, well, it's been blown out on that edge by that light, but it's this shadow here is coming off this. And on the side, about here, is a light about this, you call it beauty dish, with a grid on it, which is just giving you this contrast here from the side. So, and it's just, I just like it because it's a bit scientific. And then an opposite to overlit is underlit is a John Olsen, just really simple in the studio. So John's studio is full of crap, and there's not a clean wall. And I put a background roll in the car, and
Is it canvas or paper?
no, it's paper. Anyway, so I've intentionally made it scruffy and roughy because I just think it works. There, and I just put it between 2 doors. And John loves having his photo taken, and I've got a feeling, God, I can't remember if that was daylight or a little bit. I think it was a little bit of flash. I'm sure it was a little bit of flash. But it's just a lovely time. He thinks of himself as a man from the Basque region, and he loves to cook for you. So I just sent these to him. He's 90 odd now, and he sent me back the most lovely. Same wall, you'll recognise. And I suppose the magazine got sick of me too. But you know, I almost had this. I've got all these silly little props. This guy's name was Brendan. It'll come to me. Anyway, he was a photojournalist that went to Somalia. Shit photojournalist, because second week he got kidnapped.
Yeah.
And do you know that guy? Anyway, there was a big story about him. He wouldn't have made, I don't think, much money as a photojournalist, but he's done really well teaching people how to cope with being kidnapped and lectured everywhere. But I just went to the hardware store because they come with nothing, and how do you show kidnapped? So I just hang a little light, even though it's only for art direction. I've lit him. He was also his tungsten light, and I've just bought these. He bought a small chain with him and 2 padlocks. But so I did that. Then I also shot his feet. It's just great. But often I do try and conceive it beforehand. Yes, I do, but it doesn't always go to plan. And when I think, I haven't played as many people do with the, and I haven't done enough lately, is the old wet plate stuff, which, and these aren't mine, these are a lady in America, I think this was a lady, but I was pitching this idea to Wayne Beachley or someone like that, because she has a surf competition in Sydney, and I'm not, that's my daughter, one of my ones. Josie, the speech pathologist. There's the dreaded shoes again. My dad's shoes, see, and my dad's stethoscope. So I think I carry it, and I shot that on the tin type. I think my dad's reoccurring stuff is probably because I'm the youngest, 9 years younger than my oldest brother and 7 than my other brother, and I didn't do university, and I think I probably crashed too many cars, and I know I'm going to shock you a lot here. I probably smoked marijuana too, and but I'd still go to the nursing home. Dad's, he's off with the pixies, fully out there with Alzheimer's, and I'm whispering his ear, because it made me feel good. And he had no idea. What a coward. I finally confessed when he had Alzheimer's. But it felt really good. Anyway, I was always there. And Aaron again, and the tintype is such fun because you don't know if it's going to work. I'm not that great at it. The lady who does them is not far from you in East Trenton, Ellie Gold. Gold, yeah, from Gold Street Studios, and they do courses there. The best guy, I'm trying to remember the Australian guy that come to me, who's really good at it. But I will also do, for instance, this is digital file, and this is a Woman's Weekly, and I've shot that on a 45mm tilt shift. I used to use that a lot. The tilt shift lens. So again, you can see I've got my crap that I'll just chuck in the car, which is my safety blanket. Old canvas, because this was in a modern sports thing, and so I've got an old canvas. I chuck in my bloody bit of rope again, throwing it up, because as well, I've done action pictures of her, and with that, those tilt shift lenses, they can go like that. So they can go up and down, or they can go across, they can slide. And I would have just, with that, turned it like that, and then hit the center focus spot, probably shot that. It looks pretty sharp there, but it is sharp in real life. It's just shit. No, it's not. It is sharp though. But I probably would have shot that. I think it was 2.8 lens. Probably shot that about f4 just to get a little bit. But I love the tilt shifts, and I've sold them all. Oh, I had one when I had Canon 45, and then I had one when I had a Nikon. But it's such a good, simple thing. This is not my shot, but I love that of that wacky actor guy who, not Ben Mendelsohn.
Noah Taylor.
Noah Taylor. Yeah.
Probably volleyball too.
Okay. So yeah, it was for lane. These are the sort of things I want to make. I shoot on the big old plate camera, get on the cotton dog plates right on the beach. That was a big call. And her partner was Turks Head Gallery, and I photographed them both for years. And lots of love to you. I'm probably overused the love word because I don't know if I really like laying that much now. I've gone off. I can say that, can't I? Hang in there.
So have you photographed Christina, or is that a
I've done her before. That's a pitch to happen.
Yeah.
That'll be happening in the next couple of 2 weeks. So I'm so out of practice from not working all the time. Because I don't keep anything on my laptop, because I see my laptop as something taken with me every day, and I put everything sits on my server, because if I lose it, let me see where else. So when I put in my name, I can now find lots of shit. So that was fun. John helped me do the grumpiest man in the world. It was the loveliest man until the picture turned up on the cover of the magazine, and it's like, oh, that's Ben Quilty. And it was a classic story, the bullshit that he came about. Here's a cracker. And often it's just beautiful Björk. Now, it was my one and only job I ever did for Vogue magazine, because I'm not a Vogue magazine guy. Because I'm a bit for a while, I'm not prepared to dress up. Anyway, so she was having a press conference, and normally with a press conference they give you 15-minute windows or 20-minute windows to make some pictures. And I was the last person in the day. And because I was so handsome and charming, I'm sitting there myself, Sasha, my assistant, and I just said, please, thank you for that. She said, yes. Sorry again to upset anyone. Do you go to the forest and smoke a joint, take some photos? And she's like, in the car before I knew it. No, we hadn't told the PR people, so we've just gone up to Centennial Park, and this was at the hotel that was down in Coogee. So we were like an hour and a half, having a great time right there, and she's taking her clothes off, and I'm thinking, oh, this is brilliant. And I shot on the time I can remember, because this is on a Pentax 6x7, which is a big clunky camera, but made beautiful negatives. And I also was shooting on 35mm with, at the time, it was called Polar Pan, which was an instant positive slide black and white film that Polaroid made, incredibly easy to scratch, but beautiful. And anyway, I took some fantastic pictures. She ended up loving them so much, used them for lots of things. The only people that were upset were the people. Another couple of fantastic guys, but not really. Another thing I made a mistake, because for some reason, I don't know why I didn't like the Madden brothers. Something about them, I don't know. I just found them so phony. But again, they've walked in the studio, and people, sometimes you get a note from the PR people to say, I had to photograph John Travolta, and I got an email to say, please be aware of the rules when photographing John. Do not eat garlic 24 hours or 48 hours. This is not an issue. Do not engage conversation. There was eye contact. There was about 6 things. And of course, first thing I'm straight in there. And I took fantastic photos, and I ended up flying with him down to Melbourne, and it was all good. But so a lot of the time you've got to super protective in media. So these PR people, I've already got Americans that come over, and they came over and they had their own makeup artist and girl with them, and 2 managers. And I, for some reason, thought that they had Jewish background. So first thing is, I'm like, so did you guys have a joint bar mitzvah? You know, and it was just, I don't know where it came from, but it was, so to just see them just freaking out slowly. Anyway, and then I asked them more questions, and they said to me, hey man, you're not the journalist, why are you asking questions? You're not supposed to answer questions, just take the photos. And so I did, and then they pissed me off so much. I just went over to my phone, which didn't ring, and went, oh, I've got a text message. Dad's not well at the nursing home. And I chucked him out. And I literally left him on the, I did some great photos, which they bought for publicity afterwards, but they were so rude to me, and I got such a lovely note from the manager to say, these are lovely pictures, hope everything's good, and with your dad and stuff. But yeah, I just remember they were sitting on the back step in Albury Lane, so I reversed out in the car. Thanks guys, I'm sure your limousine will be here soon. And that was it, and I just, screw you. Anyway, that's the joy of being freelance. Yeah, they were mean to me. So see, Good Weekend went with a really boring picture of Andrew. Really boring. Okay, what else? It's terrible.
And Tim, once you hand over photos to them, let's
Yes.
say you take a shoot of, 20 or whatever photos and you hand them over or more,
Shit editor. Crap editor.
you hand them over, is it their choice which one they go with?
Yeah, sadly.
And then what happens to
Heartbreaking.
the other photos? Do they keep them and say they're now like ours to use whenever we want? Or
No, just my contract with them is, or was, is a 3-month embargo of selling the images after publication date. So it gives them 3 months to, if they need to reuse them on web or anything like that, they can, at no additional cost. That's true. And then after 3 months, yeah, they always still mine, but after 3 months, so they're mine to sell, exactly. So for instance, I showed you that one which I love. See, I find that, okay, it's Jesus, all right. And I tell you what brought me to that was, I watched him mentoring the Bali 9 painters. Do you remember Ben Quilty was teaching Miriam, one of the guys, to paint in a similar style, that heavy, thick impasto paint. And rather than just do it, he was talking too much about it, and it just felt like, oh Jesus. So the day before, or a week before I was photographing Ben Quilty, I had to do the guy who's the head of border security, Roman Quiglevic, or Roman, who's lovely. And so I thought, shit, what am I going to do? I better get myself a lot of barbed wire. I'm going to Bunnings and buy a little barbed wire, have some left over. So what else you do? You make a crown. You make 2. Anyway, I'm just going to quickly show you. I'm coming back, Roman. I use this program I have paid that. I'm not a criminal, I promise. It'll come back up. I promise. So I use this program, Digital Pigeon, to send pictures. So this will give you an idea of how many is there? 168. This is shot in the studio for a cover story for Good Weekend and a spread. So this is sort of the idea of what I would shoot. I know I've got about 30 seconds probably. So, okay, so this is this little rolling stage which I've built, and it came about because of my OCD-ness. When you have backgrounds, they're called flats. They're 1200 by 2400, and I had them all stacked there, and I thought, I'm going to build myself a little rolling studio. So I stacked 3 on the bottom, 1 here, 2 there. Then I filled the gaps, put a painting thing, blah, blah. I've got myself a great little box I can move around. And I'll let solve it. Anyway, so Roman's come. I've just done a bit of abstract. Mind you, the contrast is blown out a bit here, but I've just done a few abstracts. Just go back to there with the wire. Then I go in a bit closer. I'll have him at camera, away from camera. So he's lit with one pretty soft light, and there's just a backlight coming in from behind here, which is just touching there. So sorry. So you can see, and as I said before, I shoot wide, and then I come a bit closer. I'm probably on, by the look of that, I think I shot these on a medium format, but it's about a 35mm. I like 35mm if I don't go too close for a portrait, because I like to be close when I talk to them too, or I like a 58mm.
I think we shot that on the phase, Tim.
It was a phase?
And it was the 55.
It was 55, okay.
So yeah, 35mm.
So it's a 35mm equivalent on the phase. Not the Hasselblad?
No, that was phase, I think.
And then I'll shoot some of it wider in case they want to drop copy in here. It might say. And Roman, he ran the border security. And look, you'll recognise this creep up here. So I've just got Johnny angling a little light up there for me. And I'm very much a DIY, make it work as it goes. I love that. So the reason I showed that is because that's where the barbed wire came from. And then as I'm photographing it, I'm going, it's right. We photographed that Egyptian guy who was Asia locked up, or someone, who went to Guantanamo Bay called, anyway, and I go down, and it sounds like I've got a Aladdin's cave. Shit, what I've done. I'm pretty OCD. So I had this piece of metal down there, which I cut with an angle grinder. I cut the center out. Munch, no, that's not munch. Anyway, I cut the middle bit out because the guy who was in Guantanamo Bay held it in front of his face. And so then I've gone downstairs and I'm, oh, that's right, I've got the opposite guy here. I've got the guy that stops those guys. So I'm going to use that too. And so I shot it in colour. This guy ended up, he's the one who had a 23-year-old girlfriend and who had to step aside. So when I've lit that with, you can see it's a ring light as well, that one where I shot through my assistant, and a toppy light. So it's a bit of a combo. We'll see it more. You see it more on the top of his head. There's just a slight shadow line here, halo. So, and then I'll do a few, it looks like a G.I. Joe action figure.
Yeah, it does.
And I'll do a few colour treatments. This is what I would have sent. I sent them to him, but I would have sent the same to the magazine. And I would hope the magazine would say, oh, we love this shot, but we like this treatment on it. But sadly, the magazine think that it's only in black and white, or it's only that colour until you explain it to them. And you can see here there's some shadow that I've cleaned up. But these are pretty well straight out of the can, straight out of the camera with a bit of a tweak. And, oh, that boy.
Great, it's much better than the original.
But that's, yeah, so I'll do a cooly greenier one. And then I'll do, this is a tabletop I've got. But, yeah, and there's a couple of, they're not turned on that shot. The strip light. And you can see that's got the ring flash, which you can see the shadow, and it's got one other light, the main light. So the ring flash is doing all this, coming from here, front on. That is a light high, that angle is throwing to there on his face. And there is also, that strip is on, but it's very low power, I can see. It's doing nothing, so it might be off. And the other side has a strip which is just giving us that. And I can hear you all going, so how long are you having there for? I have him there for about, how long? They often say an hour, and sometimes they'll stay for a couple. They're having a good time.
Depends how long we have you are, does it?
It does. Exactly. Exactly right. Depends if I've had my tablets for the day. Exactly. Got it. No, but he was a cracker. He was a great man because anyone who's honest and open, I'm there. It's phonies. I read that bloody Holden Caulfield and Catcher and the Rye too many times. Phony people piss me off. You can see my little box I built here though. It's so easy. So it's actually, I think I said 3. It's only 2 on the bottom, and then there's another, a thicker piece, which is probably like this.
Or is it just MDF?
MDF, yeah. And these are just sheeted, what's the thing? Ply,
Yeah.
with just a crisscross frame behind it.
Oh, yeah.
And and those arms are just to stop these wibbly wobbly. Yeah, and here is the door to outside, and that I've got skylights above up here, but this is all lit, as you can see. One here is doing that, and this is sunshine here coming through the skylights on the floor, and I've just done a balance, and I probably had one very low fill from right behind me, just to give a little bit of overall fill, but most of that would probably be just opening up on the shadow slider, I imagine. I'm a great one. So my standard pretty well post-production.
So taking out the shadow.
No, opening with where the shadow slider, moving it so there's more info in the blacks.
Yeah.
Because you can't see there, but you can see so much clearer there.
Yeah.
But my standard, I'm moving off it, but I have been in a cloudy pig for years, and it is pretty brutal.
It's not really faces.
No, but it can be, but it then goes cartoony weeny. Or, okay, let's just which doesn't help. Or, right sort of property to sell. I indulged John because his love of taking photos. So I get to take some photos of some of these dodgy models too. This is mine, sadly my sense of humour. So this lady, one day, Johnny, I hate this new program, Jono. I've got Lightroom. It's different.
The
some updates
update is shit.
I hate it. Look, LCR.
And not only that, it's really slow. I reckon you need some kind of company.
Yeah. So just briefly, this lady, so cut a long story short, hideous stuff. But basically, these are would-be models. Anyway, so the lady, this is where I'm at. So the lady turns up at first with no makeup, in her hair rollers to get hair and makeup. And I'm like, oh, that's it. I love that. I'm getting out my backdrop and I'm going to do you as 1940s, whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's just, I love that whole thing. And she doesn't smoke. I said, you need a fag. Anyway, of course, I said, this is where, if you put these in your, to directors, they'll see that you've got something, because sadly, no one's going to hire this lady as a fashion model. And she's going to get a 20 or 10 rand TV commercial based on having some personality. So I shot all these in 10 seconds, and then this is who she wants to be, which is understandable, but no one's going to hire a lady. And these are all unedited, just straight out of the can. But it's not my kind of photography, but I'm doing it to help her out. And we did lots that day. It was really for Johnny to test cameras as well as myself. And these are nice. That's just a big soft brolly from the side. One umbrella from the side and just a board or next to nothing on the other side. I just got to show you this quickly. This is so funny. So, what did he say? This guy's an actor, and this agency is called Silver Fox, so they've got to have silver hair. This is not a common comment. Anyway, this guy was very sweet, but he's quite a thespian and thought he was an actor. Sort of. There's actor types. Anyway, he's going, he goes, and I'm talking to him. I said, oh, what's the last role you played? Oh, I'm doing a wizard. And I said, oh, what's your wizard look? That's his wizard look! Hang on. Surrendering that. But yeah, and again, he's not going to get TV commercials because he's not letting his personality come out and stuff. Oh, I know why. I'm cropped to the format of the projector.
We might,
Let's call it quits.
we might have to.
Any questions, though? Anyone got any questions, or it's been a little bit of a loosey-goosey.
So these people, has this agency contacted you to do those photos, or did they come in individually?
They all came in one day. Basically, I'm going to dog John, and he wanted to test his cameras. John likes doing actor portraits and stuff. I'm over him now, but because I love him dearly,
You indulge.
I indulge him. I do.
Good friend.
I indulge all of you. Any of you want to come up and play? So, and no, I do. And anyway, it's none of these photos I've ever used myself, but I've sent them off now to them, and
And they'll be happy.
they're happy, and that's it. Yeah. And there's so many weirdos out there. I don't know who's a weirdo. So I'm sure. Just who knows what NEF is? Who's got an NEF camera? Well,
Yeah.
You got? What's the CR? CR2?
That's
Is it CR2?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah.
Who's on Sony? What's Sony, Jono?
ARW.
ARW? I don't know what else to tell you, except that I got accused of making him be Jesus, which I swear I didn't.
He looks
He didn't think so.
He wasn't.
He wasn't too
And I was so disappointed because he started, oh, that's what I was going to tell you. Good question about you give them the files and you hope that they're going to, and you, not you, I've got to put my hand up for I should be much more controlling, but it comes across as being incredibly arrogant in their opinion. This is the editor people. Even though I've literally had 40 years of magazine experience, if I just gave them the 6, this is the cover, they just get pissed off. So they, like a fool, as well as shooting that other one where it's quite heroic and majestic, I shoot a few in betweens on my little Nikon with a 40mm. I've got a 40mm Voigtlander lens, which is such a cracker, and they had to pick the insecure moment of doubt for the cover, didn't they? So it's such a stupid mistake of myself to trust people too, but the difference between the 2 photos is so marked, where he looks incredibly unsure of himself, doubtful, vulnerable, and the other one he's wearing it like he should. Had they published the other one, he would not have given me the grief that he gave me. He rang me the day he published it.
He would have hated that.
And he was unbelievably aggressive. Started off with, you don't know what it's like to be a middle-aged white man in the art world. So you don't understand, I've just been attacked by these 2 really angry ladies up in online, and just like, so, yeah. And that upsets you because at the end of the day, oh look, there's a nice family. Gone to heaven. Do you think, that's while we're on it,
Adding it.
I think,
He's adorable.
I think Brooks could be having a relationship with Auburn Thorpe. I'm starting it here. You all read today. How sad was it when Thorpe? I know, but how sad was it? I felt so for him, and that's why I could never be a paparazzi person. I can't be the person to take the photo that outs the people. It's horrible. When poor old Thorpe, after all these years of getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, going to the pool, all he wanted to do was to go to LA and get a bit of action. And he gets there and he's met by all the paparazzi. It was so, I thought that was outrageous. Leave him alone. Anyway, I don't think I've got many other secrets. I have lots of secrets, but.
Thanks very much, Tim.
Oh, pleasure, mate. You know I love it so much.
Yeah, we'll do what you tell.
I love it so much. How hot is he, son?
my God, it's ridiculous. He just gets hotter as he gets
And you know,
older.
the first time I ever photographed Simon, he was living in a garage. Bruce Samerson, God, that came from nowhere. The two of them were living in a garage in Wollongong, and all they were doing all day was smoking pot. And then all of a sudden, he got the job, the telly, in
The medalist.
no, it was one of the soapies first, and then the mentalist, whew, and I had to go to America to photograph him. That was in my studio. And that's the same wall when I first made it for a Vodafone, and I textured and made it silver. Anyway, I had to go to photograph him in America. No, it's pretty old, probably close to, I guess, 15 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
I went to America and he actually put me up to stay in his place with his missus and his kids. It was delightful. That's years ago in the 90s.
So if anybody wants to get a cut, we've got about half an hour till the workshop.
Oh, Jesus.
So yeah, if you come back to the workshop this afternoon, we'll have some lunch or something. We've got coffee and